Ben Freeman.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks to CATO for having me too, and thanks to all my fellow panelists. I'm looking forward to talking about the surface combat fleet. As some of you know, I and a lot of my colleagues at POGO have been investigating the Littoral Combat Ship. And the Littoral Combat Ship is going to represent roughly a third of the surface combatant fleet. And so I think it's a very important issue to talk about, especially today in light of these issues that we brought forward. We found some troubling issues with the Navy's first Littoral Combat Ship, the USS Freedom. It's a Lockheed Martin built ship. Working with whistleblowers close to the program, I and my colleagues learned about equipment failures, cracking, and design issues. Some were old issues or had been previously reported, but many others were not. Like a stern door, which is designed with a gap in the bottom big enough to slide your hand through, or the rampant corrosion throughout the interior of this 4-year-old ship. The Navy called these first-of-class issues, but these never should have been issues in the first place. Shipbuilders told us, members of the House Armed Services Committee have told us, this is shipbuilding 101. Thanks to a bipartisan push, the House version of the NDAA has an amendment in it requiring the GAO to investigate these issues and the program's sustainment strategy. We're confident that the Senate will also support this investigation. My hope is that this study and future analyses will further clarify a number of questions I and many others have been asking about the LCS program. When I first began looking at the Littoral Combat Ship and working with these whistleblowers, I learned about so many problems that one of the first questions I asked was, do you think the Navy should still use this ship? Their answer was no. And actually it was an emphatic no with an expletive in front. I was told the ship should be used as little more than a training vessel. And the idea that it would deploy to Singapore, at that time it was going to deploy to Singapore this year, was laughable. And even now with the pushback to Singapore in 2013, they're still not convinced that that's a good idea. While the Navy's fixed the cracks we reported, the ship continues to have issues, continues to have cracking problems. The cracking problem itself is not fixed, even if those cracks we identified were. Equipment failures continue to plague the ship, we're told, including engine failures. So after learning about this, the question that I kept asking was, well, we know the other version, the other variant, the General Dynamics Austral variant, we know that has some problems too. It's got a lot of corrosion issues. People aren't convinced that that ship's ideal either. So which variant is worse? Now, we've been asking this question since the Navy and Congress agreed to keep buying 2 variants, the so-called dual award strategy. Initially the plan was to do what was called the down select plan, where we're going to have these 2 teams build 2 ships, have them compete, pick the best ship. We decided not to do that, went with 2 variants. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten my hands on any LCS-2 whistleblowers, to the dismay of some, to the happiness of others. But based upon the information we have available, I think the Lockheed variant's the weaker of the 2 variants. However, there's a lot of caveats to put on that. There's a lot of information we still don't know about either variant. And in fact, we're not sure the DoD knows. The DoD's own testing office has reported they haven't received any testing or evaluation reports, formal reports I should say, from the program testing offices. The Navy says they're working on the reports. So maybe even they can't answer the which is better question. Hopefully we can at some point. What we do know for sure is we're buying a lot of these ships without really knowing what we're getting for our money. My fellow panelist, the Honorable Bob Work, just a year ago said that we're not exactly sure how it will finally operate in the fleet. A good question to ask then, and one I'd certainly like answered is, why do we have 12 of these ships under contract if we don't know the testing results or we don't know how the ship's going to operate in the surface combatant fleet? Another good question to ask is, should we be purchasing 2 very different variants? I've yet to hear a convincing argument for why 2 variants of the ship are better than 1. Sure, it's better for Lockheed and General Dynamics, but for taxpayers, for a CATO crowd, which is concerned with waste of taxpayer money, I'm not convinced it's a good idea. Also, if you're concerned with military readiness, I'm also not sure it's a good idea. LCS-2 recently joined LCS-1 in San Diego. So for the first time, we're seeing these 2 ships side by side. I got as much of a critic as I am of this program. I got to say, that's pretty cool to see these 2 ships out there. However, when you see them side by side, you really see how different these ships are. And it's hard to imagine 2 ships that do the exact same mission. They're supposed to do the exact same thing, looking more different. We got LCS-1, which looks like a traditional ship. It's a monohull ship, looks like a ship we would all think of. And then we have LCS-2, which is a tri-hull, menacing looking tri-hull. This thing looks like it has Darth Vader at the helm. Very, very intimidating looking ship. But they both do the same exact thing. But the difference is, the important thing is that the differences go far beyond the appearance. And they're going to be very costly down the line. Ships designed to operate with a small crew. However, the crews of one variant won't necessarily be able to operate the other variant. And that's going to be costly. Similarly, your maintenance, your spare parts, and all those associated supply chains, they're going to be different. That's going to up cost too. There may also be issues with the compatibility of the mission modules. We don't know yet, but there could be. All of which drives up cost, and it can decrease readiness. In short, if these ships can both do the exact same thing, why should we pay more for two? Another important question is whether or not the LCS is a combat ship. This is a question we've been debating a lot lately. Even though combat is literally its middle name, I'm not convinced the Littoral Combat Ship is actually a combat ship, at least not in the way that we traditionally think of a combat ship. According to the Navy, the LCS is going to be operating as part of a networked battle group and will only conduct independent operations in low-threat areas. If that's true, then why do we need it at all? I like to believe our Navy keeps the seas safe, not that our Navy only goes where the seas already are safe. If the LCS has to track subs or clear mines near the Iranian coast, for example, it's not going to be in a low-threat area, and it may not have the carrier strike group there if things go south, unfortunately. Moreover, the LCS is not currently prepared to fulfill its mission, even in low-threat environments. Development of the mission modules, which I previously mentioned, has been slow at best. Currently, we're looking at a mine hunter that can't really see or stop mines, and we're looking at a sub hunter that doesn't have any real meaningful torpedo detection. Basically, I liken the LCS to a Swiss Army knife. It can do a lot of things, just can't do a lot of things well. For that, I'll hand over the rest of my time to the rest of the panel and I guess the rest of the surface combat fleet.